Hello, everybody, and welcome to the video. Today, we are going to be talking about Atraxa's Toxicity 2024. So, for those of you who don't know, I play Magic, and a lot of my friends have been asking me to give some advice on how I build decks. So, this is one of my favorite decks, and I'm going to start off with this one. So, this is going to be the Magic decks of a cybersecurity architect. So Atraxa Praetors Voice is probably one of the best commanders to go on a poison deck. And in order to get there, I started off with the Phyrexia All Will Be One Corrupting Influence precon. Ixal is the main commander in this particular precon. She is an evasive flyer with vigilance, and she has toxic too. So she's able to go out there pretty quickly and just start attacking people for poison counters. But she's limited to just white, black, and green, and I wanted to be able to use all of the colors, especially blue. There's a lot of counter spells and heuristic studies in there too. So we have upgraded that deck with an Atraxa Praetor's Voice as the commander. And the main goals of this deck is just going to be to get poison counters on everyone ASAP, optimally between turn 1 and 4. We want to be able to mana ramp to 6 plus so that we can cast all of our spells. And then we want to get our proliferation engines online. Atraxa is going to be the big proliferation engine, and we can cast her on turn 4 if we can get land drops on every single turn. And then we're going to want to kind of establish levels of defense to protect our proliferation engines, whether that's holding mana back for counter spells or getting some bigger creatures out onto the field. When opponents are casting their key abilities, depending on who the commander is, if it's a foreign collects or something, as soon as they cast it, I want to be able to get that thing off of the field. If they're doing any stacking spells or anything, I want to be able to cast a counter spell on those too, and kind of disable and disrupt their ramping abilities. Something that okay, if they played that card, they might have been able to get turned up on turn 3 or 4. Well, now they're having to wait till turn 5, 6, 7, and by then I should have some defenses up and be able to start proliferating a little bit more. And then, so we also have some opponent taxes in here, things like heuristic study, that every time an opponent does something or tries to, come at us in some way, shape, or form, they get taxed in some way. And then the next thing after we get all that stuff established is we're going to proliferate to high hell, and we're going to get all of our opponents up to 10 poison counters and win the game. The main stats in the deck, it's pretty straightforward deck. We've got 2 planeswalkers, we have 23 creatures, 11 of those are evasive creatures, 12 of those have toxic on them. We have 9 sorceries, 12 instants, 12 artifacts, 7 enchantments, and 36 lands. So it's a pretty well balanced deck overall. So what's the strategy stats? So the strategy stats, when I look at this, I'm a nerd and I do a lot of number crunching and stuff. So I have 22 cards in here that can do poison counters, 3 that give you a corrupted a bonus, 18 that have proliferate, 2 mirrors. I get 5 with +1/+1 counter additions, and then 1 that also gives loyalty counters. So Skrelv, Defector Might, is going to be one of our main ones that we can try and get off on turn 1. Toxic 1. He also has a tap ability that makes another creature unblockable, depending on how you play it. So he's a good turn 1 if we can get the mana right. Venerated Priest is another one, Toxic 1. This one is also pretty nifty in the fact that whenever a creature you control becomes a target of a spell, target opponent gets a poison counter. That is not limited to opponents casting spells on your creature. So if you happen to cast a spell on your own creature, that would also count and give the opponent a poison counter. Turn 2, we're going up to Blightbelly Rat, Toxic 1. When he dies, proliferate. Blighted Agent, this creature is unblockable. It has Infect. It's a 1/1, but if you can get it off on turn 1 or 2, it's really good. Voidwing Hybrid, flying. I like evasive. Flying is one of my favorite ones because early on in the game, it's hard for people to defend flying. It's hard for them to defend Death Touch and some other stuff. So we have a flying Toxic, and this one also lets us bring it back from the graveyard when we proliferate. Moving on, we've got Finn the Fangbearer, who has Death Touch, and this says whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. Bloated Contaminator is Trample Toxic 1 for 3 mana. It's a 4/4, and whenever Bloated Contaminator deals combat damage to a player, proliferate. So you're going to get 1 trigger on the Toxic, unless they have a 4/4 that can completely negate damage. As long as you can get through with a little bit of damage, you're going to put 1 toxic counter on that player, and then you're going to proliferate. Ecor Rats. This is an older infect creature, but It's a solid one because everybody's going to get a poison counter directly. When Ecor Rats enters the battlefield, each player gets a poison counter. Super powerful for 3 mana. Tainted Observer, another flying evasive toxic one with a proliferate buff. Ixal, Scion of Atraxa. As we mentioned before, she's a commander on the precon. She's really solid. She's got a corrupted bonus that it's horrible to play against. If you ever played against somebody who has Ixal as their commander, them stealing your cards just sucks. But it's flying vigilance and toxic too, so we should be able to get some poison counters stacked up with this guy. And then once we get up to the higher mana levels, we have Fishgrass, the Doom Hive. So he has Menace and Toxic One. So Menace is another one that makes him a little bit evasive. You have to have 2 blockers. But when he enters the battlefield, we're going to create 3/1/1 colorless Might artifacts that have Toxic as well. And then he gets +1 counters for each poison counter your opponents have. Hopefully, by the time you get this guy out on the field, you've got a handful of poison counters stacked up. And then he's just going to get stronger as you proliferate. Contaminant Grafter. Trample, Toxic one, 5/5. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage, you get to proliferate, and it has a corrupted bonus. Ajani's Sleeper Agent. So this one, it's the +6 ability that we're really worried about when it comes to poison counters. You want to get this guy up and ultimate him as quickly as possible. It's only 6, so this isn't hard to do. And it gives you an emblem that says whenever you cast a creature or planeswalker spell, target opponent gets 2 poison counters. We have a lot of creature or planeswalker spells in our deck, so we should be able to put a few more poison counters on people this way. And then Vraska, Betrayal Sting. So she's got a really nifty ultimate that lets us basically get a player up to 9 poison counters right away. She doesn't have any +1s, but we're going to be able to proliferate and get these loyalty counters stacked up a little bit higher. She's a less likely ultimate than Ajani, but she's still a solid option. And then we're not just going for creatures when it comes to poison damage. We also want to use spells to cast direct poison damage. So we have Infectious Bite, direct poison counter, Infectious Query, direct poison counter. So Norn's Decree, whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls deals combat damage to you, that opponent gets a poison counter. This is also a good politicking one, because whenever a player attacks, if one or more players being attacked are poisoned, the attacking player draws a card. So they will be more likely to attack your opponents as opposed to you because they'll be able to get some card draw off of that. Phyresis Outbreak. Each opponent gets poison counter. Then each creature your opponent controls gets -1, -1. This is okay early game, but really we're just looking for that poison counter. Maybe we'll get some creatures off the board with a -1, -1, but it's kind of ancillary. Tainted Strike. This is an excellent instant card. Target creature gets +1/+0 and gains Infect until the end of turn. This is a 1 mana black. So you can, because it's an instant, you can actually declare attackers. This is good to use on Atraxa because she's a flyer. She's already got Death Touch. People aren't usually inclined to block Atraxa because of the Death Touch. So if you declare your attackers, they declare their blockers. You can cast this after their blockers are declared. Give Atraxa Infect and put 4 poison counters on somebody. Very, very solid option. I love it. And then Vraska's Fall. So each opponent sacrifices a creature, planeswalker, and gets a poison counter. And then we have an artifact here just to kind of round things off. I like giving Atraxa Toxic. She's flyer. She is Death Touch. People don't really like blocking her. For 1 mana and 1 equip cost, we can give her Toxic 1 and a little bit extra defense just to make her a little bit more resilient with that Death Touch. All right, so then we are moving into Proliferate. So the big thing with this deck is Atraxa, Praetor's Voice. She is at the beginning of your end step, you are going to proliferate. You want to kind of get some poison counters, maybe get some +1 counters, get some loyalty counters if you've drawn some planeswalkers, and then pop Atraxa's Voice, proliferate, and start increasing all of those counters. So yeah, the main things that proliferate is going to work on are poison counters, +1/+1 counters, and the loyalty counters. Planeswalkers, once we get opponents over 3 poison each, we're going to start stacking up corrupted bonuses. And Atraxa is the main driver of our proliferation engine. In addition to her, we have Blightbelly Rat, who is also a toxic one. And whenever he dies, we're going to proliferate. So we want to send him out there after you get some poison counters on people. And then once he dies, we get an extra bonus. So, I don't really mind putting him up to defend somebody or just sending him out to die just for the hell of it. So, Blooded Contaminator, Toxic, Trample. So, and this is a trigger based off of combat damage to a player. So, unless they have a 4/4 blocker, you're going to proliferate every time you attack with this guy. Contaminant Grafter also has Trample and Toxic 1. And it says whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to one or more players, proliferate. Evolution Sage is probably one of my favorite just to kill people with land. It has a landfall proliferation effect. So whenever a land enters battlefield under your control, you get to proliferate. Hopefully you're hitting your land drops and you're just getting an extra proliferation every single turn off of this. Some extra proliferates. Tainted Observer. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2 mana. If you do, proliferate. The 2 mana for proliferation isn't always enticing depending on how the game's playing out, but some of the other options that we have cost more mana, so 2 mana is one of the cheaper options to get an extra proliferate every turn. Flux Channeler. So, we mentioned that we have a lot of spells that give direct poison counters. We also have a lot of proliferation um, spells as well, and this human creature says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, proliferate. So hopefully, some turns we should be able to cast 2, 3 spells plus an Atraxa, end turn pop. Maybe we can give 4 poison counters on everybody in a single turn. Techathal Inquiry Dominus has flying, and it says if you would proliferate twice instead. So this is going to be one of those really, really good options to start doubling and multiplying. And if you have some clones available, it's a good option to clone as well. So, and then finally, Vraska Betrayal Sting. So her 0/0 ability is going to let you draw a card and lose 1 life, but it's also going to allow you to proliferate every single turn. We're going to try and hopefully get her up to her ultimate, so I'm glad that the proliferate on this one at least doesn't give her negative points. And then, we mentioned proliferating based off of spells, so let's cast some spells. So here's Broker's Confluence. This is a 5 mana, but it says choose 3. You may choose the same mode more than once. The first mode is Proliferate, which is probably going to be your favorite. But depending on how the game plays out, we may need to use some of the other options. It also says target creature phases out and counter target activated or triggered ability. Um, if we can proliferate 3 times on this, that's a huge boost. Cankerbloom. This is a little bit of utility, but also proliferate. So, sacrifice Cankerbloom, we get to choose one. Destroy artifact, enchantment, or proliferate. Primarily, we are going to want to proliferate. Drown in Igor is a removal spell. So target creature gets a -4, -4, and then you proliferate. So if you just need to wipe something off the board, cast a spell, get another proliferate trigger, hopefully off the other one, and then take something off the board. Experimental Augury is look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library. Proliferate. So it's great card draw, gives you a little bit of card ramp here, and a proliferate. Inexorable Tide. Whenever you cast a spell, proliferate. So same thing as our Flux Channeler, except this is in an enchantment version. And then Tazzerat's Gambit. We can draw 2 cards and proliferate, and this can also be paid for with life instead of mana. And then Unnatural Restoration. This is going to be recursion. We get to bring something back from the graveyard and then proliferate. Then we have some cool little utilities here. When in the artifact department, we have a mana rock that has whenever Glistening Sphere enters the battlefield, we get to proliferate, and then if our opponents have multiple poison counters, it actually counts for 3 mana. And we have a land utility as well. So this is a colorless land, but it gives us the option to pay 4 mana and proliferate again. And then we talked about the Corrupted. So Skrell's Hive is an enchantment. It's going to be creating 1/1 colorless mites that have Toxic 1 every single turn. If you end up getting 3 poison counters on somebody, this gives you the ability that as long as one opponent has 3 or more creatures you control with toxic have lifelink. So that's going to help you boost your health up. I'm not sure exactly how awesome this is. This is on the chopping block if I need to swap some cards out, but it's a nice little bonus if you can get it. Ixal, Scion of Atraxa. So we mentioned this before. Her Corrupted is at the beginning of your end step. Each opponent who has 3 or more poison counters exiles the top card of their library face down. You may look at and play those cards for as long as they remain exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. So this is just a great stealing ability, card ramping, gives you some extra options, and she's able to put Toxic out there. She has flying and vigilance, so she can defend too. She's got 5 defense too, so we're not too worried about her attacking. Yeah, so she's a little bit resilient. So she's really solid. I see why they put her in as a commander. I don't really like her as a commander. I like having access to blue and using her as a backup option. And then Contaminant Grafter has a corrupted ability that says at the beginning of your end step, if an opponent has 3 more poison counters, draw a card, and then you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So this is giving you card ramp, and it's giving you extra mana as well. So if you're able to put 2 lands in one turn, that's excellent. You're outpacing your opponents. And then Glistening Sphere, like we mentioned a few seconds ago, its corrupted ability lets us add 3 mana instead of 1. Great mana rock. And then our next big strategy is going to be mirroring. So we have Spark Double in here. You may have Spark Double enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature or planeswalker you control, except it enters with an additional +1/+1 counter. So you can make a 5/5 Atraxa with this. You can also use it on your double proliferate creature to just have extra proliferates. But I'd probably want to use this on Atraxa if I had the option. Helm of the Host is an artifact equipment, and it also lets you create a token copy of an equipped creature. Again, Atraxa is ideal, but you got some backup options in there if you need to. All right, so now let's move on to the +1/+1 counters and the loyalty counters. So a Johnny Sleeper Agent has a -3 ability that says distribute 3 +1 counters among up to 3 target creatures. They gain vigilance till the end of turn. This is situationally valuable, but it's a solid option. And if you can put counters on something, you can start proliferating on it. This particular deck is really geared towards the ultimate. So, like I said, this middle ability is going to be situational, but it's good to have it there if you need to. And it proliferates. So if you do put counters on somebody, they're going to stack up every single turn. Broker's Ascendancy is an enchantment. It says at the beginning of your end step, put a +1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty counter on each planeswalker you control. This is just excellent value. It's great. Does repeats itself every single turn. I just love this card. It's really cool. Shalai, Voice of Plenty. She is a flyer, and you planeswalkers you control and other creatures you control have hexproof. So this is a very good protection creature to put on the board. It also has a 4 mana and 2 greens. You can put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. It's important to note when you're playing this one though, she does not have hexproof. So if you have Swiftfoot Boots or something, and you're gonna put her out here, take Swiftfoot Boots off of Atraxa or wherever else you have it on, put it on Shalai so that everybody has hexproof. If you don't, somebody can respond and just kill Shalai, and then your whole field doesn't have hexproof anymore. So if you want to get the most out of her, switch the Swiftfoot Boots or Lightning Greaves over to her, and then just get a bonus on top of everyone on your board. If you have some extra mana to spare in the late game, go ahead and put some +1 counters on it if you need to. All right, and then we have Vishgrass. Swishgrass, like we mentioned, gets +1/+1 for each counter your opponents have. Just solid option. Already starts off as a 3/3. This is going to get up to be a 10, 15 pretty quick. And then what are the substats in the 99? So we have 12 card ramp, 1 counter removal. Counter removal is really hard. It's like poison counters. They can be removed. But there's not very many cards in the deck, or in the game, I should say, that even have the option to be able to do counter removal, but we have one of them in here. We have 3 counter spells, we have 7 protection mechanisms, we have 15 mana ramps, we have 9 removals, we have 4 recursions, 1 no hand size, we have 3 opponent taxes, we have 1 sacrifice, and we have 2 that create token creatures. Um, so there's a lot of stuff that goes with this. The majority of these we've already covered because of the toxic and the proliferate. Usually when I'm building these decks, I like to get a lot of dual utility out of the things that I play. So a lot of the things that we've seen so far, removes a creature -4/-4, but it also proliferates. But for the ones that we haven't covered, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Moxfield. So, like we talked about before, Ajani has a lot of options because they're a planeswalker, but its +1 ability is going to give us card ramp. Contaminant Grafter gives us card ramp. Cryptic Command. This is a 4 mana, choose 2, counter target spell, return target permanent to its owner's hand, tap all creatures your opponents control, or draw a card. Just great utility, great multi-use. You get to put it where it needs, where it gives you the most value, depending on what's going on. Opponent tags. We've got Mystic Remora, cumulative upkeep, 1 mana. Whenever target opponent successfully casts a non-creature spell, you may draw a card. That player may pay 4 mana to counter this effect. So that's a pretty steep price. You're probably just going to get a lot of card draw for that. Ristic Study, the ever fabulous, famous card. Lots of card draw. Do you want to pay the one? Do you want to pay the one? You're going to annoy everybody with this one. And then we have the One Ring also. So this lets us tap the One Ring and put a burden counter on it, and then draw a card for each burden counter on the One Ring. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each burden counter on the One Ring. This is just a good early card advantage, in my opinion. It also has the solid backup option of giving you protection for an entire turn. So if you know one of your opponents is going to swing on you, or they're coming at you, they're politicking, just play this and you can breathe easy for at least one more turn. So counter removal. So this is 1 and 2 Phyrexian blue. So it says remove 3 counters from among other artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers you control, but an indestructible counter on Tekrithal, Inquiry Dominus. So if you have things popping up, if people are putting negative counters on you, if somebody has Infect, this is an option to just be able to remove that stuff. I'm not sure, it's situationally valuable, but good to have there. So we got counter spells. Counter spells in addition to Cryptic Command. We also have Lightning Greaves for our equipment. We need to protect our commander. Lightning Greaves says equipped creature has haste and shroud. And shroud is basically that it just can't be affected by most spells. And then we got a lot of evasive stuff in here. So you got a Bird's Paradise as a flying mana dork. We already talked about Blighted Agent. Norn's Choirmaster. I don't think I covered that in the Proliferate one, but this is a 5/4 flying first strike. And whenever a commander you control enters the battlefield or attacks, we get to proliferate. So that's a good option on that. Voidwing Hybrid. I don't know if I covered that one, but this is a flying toxic one. And when you proliferate, you get to return it from your graveyard to your hand. Mana ramp, we've got Arcane Signet, Chromatic Lantern, Commander Sphere, Delighted Halfling. This is a great mana dork, especially when you're going to cast your commander. Make sure you tap her for mana so that the spell can't be countered. Everflowing Chalice, Glistening Sphere, Minas Morgul or Minas Morgul. This says add a skull for each swamp that you own, or you control, I should say. And we also have a card in there, Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, that makes every land a swamp in addition to its other types. So this is just a solid option to be able to do some ramp up if you need to. Got the Mox Amber for 0. We got Nature's Lore to give us some forests. Sky Shroud Claim. Go find 2 forests, put them on the battlefield. Soul Ring. And Temptress Discovery. So this one is a pretty interesting one, in my opinion. So this says search your library for a land card and put it onto the battlefield. Each opponent may search their library for a land card and put it onto the battlefield. For each opponent who searches a library this way, search your library for a land card and put it onto the battlefield. Then each player who searched their library this way shuffles. So you could potentially get 4 land into play and with this card. Just a ton of value late game, especially when you need to build up your mana. And then opponent tag. So we've got Ghostly Prison in here. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature he or she controls that's attacking you. In addition to Mystic Remora and Ristic Study on the spellcasts, we have taxes for them attacking us as well. And then, here's our protection. So, Broker's Confluence, we have Heroic Intervention as an instant. Lightning Greaves, we talked about. Plaza of Heroes is a land that gives you the utility of target legendary creature gains hexproof and indestructible until the end of turn. Just really, really solid. Skrelv also has an ability that lets us give a creature hexproof and protection from a color until the end of turn. And then we have some recursion. So Call to Mind is recursion for an instant, depending on how the game plays. We want to be able to proliferate again. I just want to be able to go into my graveyard and pull out another proliferate. So this is a 3 mana. Go in there, pull it out again. If we have one of our bonus triggers for spellcasting on proliferation, even better. Eternal Witness brings back a creature. So if you kill Atraxa, okay, everybody's going to kill Atraxa, but Ixal Some of the other ones, we might want to bring them back from the graveyard, so this is a good later game option. Natural Restoration, Proliferate, and bring them back from the graveyard. Removal. So we also have Cyclonic Rift in here. We have Path to Exile, and we have Swords to Plowshares. So I want to be able to get rid of your stuff ASAP. And then Vraska's Fall is going to give us the option to make a player's sacrifice. So I like playing this when somebody first brings out their commander. They only have one creature. Go ahead, play this. The only option that you have is to sacrifice your commander. So GG. I love it. And then we've got Vishgrass and Skrelv creating token creatures for us. All right, so the next big thing is the land package. We have a 4-color commander, so it's going to be really important to get all 4 colors onto the field so that we can play her. And being able to do this is a little bit more challenging in a 4-color deck, but it's still doable. Most of the principles and things that are going on in here, they're pretty universal for most decks. So I kind of see land as a universal thing. In this one, we have 2 colorless lands. We have 9 1-color lands. We have 12 dual color lands, and we have 12 3+ color lands. For our colorless lands, we have Karn's Bastion, which gives us Proliferate, and we have Reliquary Tower, which gives us no maximum hand size. Other than that, I try and stay away from the colorless mana off land anyway. Artifacts and stuff you can't escape. We've got 2 forests. We've got 2 islands. We've got Minas Morgul. We've got 2 plains, and we've got 2 swamps. For dual color lands, we have a lot of pathways, Bountiful Promenade, opponent lands. We're playing commander, so we're always going to have 2 or more opponents. We also have some color fixing cards in here. So technically these are colorless mana cards, but if we pay 1 in this one, it's either a green or a blue. We can go ahead and add 2 mana to fix that. So if we need green green, or we need green blue, or we need blue blue, we can use some mana to kind of fix our colors if we need to. I'm not entirely sold on this yet, but it seems to be playing out pretty well so far, but we'll see. The land might get flipped up just a little bit. You got other things like Morphic Pool, 2 or more opponents, mana fixing, Arcane Sanctum for our tricolor, Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, Indatha Triome, Mana Confluence. I really try to avoid paying 1 life for anything, but in this particular deck, when we're color strapped, sometimes we need to pay the life to get the colors that we need and get our game on the road. So it's in here. Opulent Palace is another triple, Plaza Heroes, Utility Land. And then down here we got the rest of the triples. Sideboard options that I have in here just in case. Got Swiftfoot Boots. This is going to be something that we're going to probably swap out with Lightning Greaves, depending on the situation. I got the Great Henge. This is just a solid mana boost if you need it. Vorinclex Monstrous Radar. So this one is really really awesome because it says if you would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead. You get double up on your poison counters. Another benefit is if an opponent would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, they put half that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead, rounded down. A lot of the counters are +1/+1, so that actually means 0. Poison counters, a lot of them are 1 as well, which also means 0. But in the event that you did have a 2, 3, 4, you're going to be getting 1 or 2 poison counters instead of multiple. And then you have leeches, and leeches is one of the only other cards in the game that removes counters. And this one says it removes specifically poison counters. Target player loses all poison counters. Leeches deals that much damage to that player. I have some friends that also use poison, and sometimes I need to swap this in, just put leeches and Vorinclex in there so that I have some defense against their poison strategy while I can kind of build up my strategy. All right, so that's enough of me ranting and raving about all these different card types, right? We probably want to see how this stuff plays out. And Atraxa is one of the really great commanders because she translates over to Arena pretty well. So if you're looking at my Mox field, I have Atraxa's Toxicity. This is my paper deck. But I also have an Arena adaptation on this one. And basically all the cards that just aren't in Arena, that aren't supported, I tried to swap them out 1-to-1 as best as I could. But this is my Arena adaptation deck. So we're going to go ahead and put this to the test and kind of show you the play style of how this deck works, because I'm a big fan of that seeing is believing and kind of being able to play through it and understand the mechanics and see how they work together. It just helps understand the way the deck works a lot better, in my opinion. So let's get into some gameplay.
Who's a sliver? The sliver is difficult to deal with. Some lands, Got some removal. I don't have any real poisons in here though. So I like that I got some protection and some removal. I got some proliferates. But I really want poison. Got a Skrelv, but I don't have the mana for a Skrelv. Eh. Alright. We're going to keep that. And we'll ditch the graveyard. Recursion. Alright, so definitely need some black on the field. Eh. Alright, let's get the Pestilence Siphon around here and see if we can tag him with some Toxic. Sweet. Alright, so I got a normal land. So I want to cast you. I want to go to combat. I want to put a poison ticker on you. Bam. Nope, not into my turn. I'm gonna proliferate. Now in my turn. Let me respond. Yes. Nope. That cannot play. I gotta let you cascade first, don't I? I hate the slow computer sometimes. Alright. Now I can cast Sword Splasher. I have got to get rid of this thing. ASAP. That is one of the ones that just has to die. Go away. Thank goodness. Alright. Got some ramp, which I need, but I need to get Atraxa out here first. Let's go ahead and get Atraxa out. One attacker. You're gonna cast that sliver again, aren't you? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh, duress. Okay. Got rid of Noxious Assault. Sad face. No, you quit. Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. I'm just gonna keep proliferating, keep finding land and land falling and attacking with Atraxa and defending with Atraxa. And that's pretty much just how this deck rolls. It's pretty fun. I like it. The arena version is a little bit more toned down, but the mechanics and everything still pretty much work the same way. Alright, it is 3:45. That match only lasts like 5 minutes. So let's go ahead and grab another match. Alright, so this is a decent hand. 2 or more lands, 1 damage. Alright, so we got Voidwing Hybrid, which can give us our first poison counter. And we got some other stuff too. So some mana dorks, amulets, artifacts. Alright, so this one's going to come in tapped, 2 or more lands. But that's okay because we need our blue. What you got, Glissa? What you got? For more of their lands. Selene Waste is going to give us untapped. Voidwing Hybrid. Yes, I'll pay a life. Sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes it's worth it to pay a life. Let's see, you going to put anybody out that can respond to Flyer? Nope. No response to flying. Awesome. No, you know what? I want to play... It's going to come in tapped anyway, so let's play... No, it isn't going to come in tapped. Because I got 2 or more, right? Yep. So let's play that. And then we'll throw our Chalice out here. Poison counter out. I'm just going to keep putting that flyer on it until you have an answer for flying. So. So let's cast the Triome now. I'll go ahead and wait to cast Atraxa because I got a poison guy out there. So you're still going to get another counter this turn. Okay. All attacks. Just a little 4-2. Alright, so now I need to turn the Proliferation engine up. I got some mana. Cast Atraxa. I don't have enough mana for that. Sad face. Alright, you'll get a poison counter anyway. Oh, killing Atraxa. Okay, I see. I see how it is. You come at me with your 4. Okay, so it's the downside of this format. It's a poison counter. I can't cast it. No, I can't cast Atraxa. Yeah, Atraxa coming back out. Come on. Just got the lag on the outline, I guess. Come on. Yep. No response to Atraxa. She comes out onto the field. We will put number 4 on you. Are you going to do something with your little 2 mana? Do you got something you're holding back? Oh, yeah, you got some good removal, good draws on your part. You're gonna make her really expensive for me. Nine health. Sweet. Let's get rid of that guy. Got 2 tickers on that guy. This is... Yep. And we will draw. So you had some good removal. Good job. We're going to transform that. I'll take an infectious bite. And that'll take you to 7. Good. Rage quit. That's what I like to see. And that is how Atraxa plays. People don't like her at all. And I love it when they rage quit. But anyway, that's how my Atraxa deck. So I hope you liked it. Hopefully this helps you learn a little bit about mechanics and how to work the poisons and the proliferates. Like as you just saw, they clearly blocked Atraxa because she's a threat. But guess what? I got an answer for that too. Go ahead, waste all your removal on Atraxa. And then I'll start casting spells and just start triggering off of spells and just start proliferating endlessly. So I hope you found that informative, and I'll catch you in the next video.